I'm Sarah, 28 years old. On my wedding day, my father was supposed to walk me down the aisle, but instead, he chose my sister's golden retriever's birthday party. I thought it was just another act of favoritism, until a cousin revealed the truth. Jessica had been lying to him about me for years. That night, the truth finally came out, and it changed our family forever. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. And truly, thank you for being here. Growing up in suburban Denver, Colorado, our family looked picture perfect from the outside. Our two-story house with the manicured lawn and Susan's flower beds was everything you'd expect from a middle-class neighborhood. My dad, Michael, worked as a software engineer at a tech company downtown, standing about 6'2" with brown hair and the kind of steady presence that made me feel safe. Every morning before work, he'd sit with me at breakfast, asking about my day ahead while Mom packed my lunch. Seha Sebu or Unra. Sarah, you have the brightest future ahead of you, sweetheart, he'd tell me, his eyes crinkling at the corners. You're going to do amazing things someday. Those words meant everything to me. While other kids complained about homework, I'd throw myself into projects, knowing Dad would help me build the best science fair volcano or history presentation. When I brought home straight A's, he'd put my report card on the refrigerator and take me out for ice cream to celebrate. My mother, Linda, was our family's heart. A kindergarten teacher with warm brown eyes and endless patience, she balanced out Dad's occasional intensity. She worked at the elementary school just down the street, always putting our family first. I remember how she'd sit with me for hours, helping with homework or teaching me to bake her famous chocolate chip cookies that made our whole house smell like heaven. The dynamic in our house was complicated because of my sister Jessica. She's 4 years older than me, and honestly, our relationship was difficult from day one. Tall and athletic, where I was average height and more into books, Jessica excelled at volleyball, while I was drawn to photography and writing. Mom always tried to celebrate our different strengths equally, but Jessica seemed to take every compliment I received as a personal attack on her. Even before the tragedy that changed everything, Jessica resented the close bond I shared with Dad. She'd roll her eyes when he'd help me with projects, or when we'd go on our weekend camping trips. Dad's little princess, she'd mutter under her breath, thinking I couldn't hear. Everything changed when I was 14. It was a cold December afternoon, and Mom was driving to pick me up from school when a drunk driver ran a red light and hit her car. The doctor said she died instantly, which I guess was supposed to be some kind of comfort. But honestly, it just made the whole thing feel more surreal and cruel. The 6 months after Mom's death were a blur of casseroles from neighbors, whispered conversations between adults, and watching my dad try to figure out how to raise 2 daughters alone. He threw himself into work, often staying at the office until 9 or 10 at night. I think it was his way of avoiding the painful emptiness of our house without Mom's laughter filling it. Jessica was 18 and about to start college at Colorado State, but she made the decision to defer for a year and come home to help. At the time, I thought it was noble of her. Looking back, I realize it was the beginning of her master plan. Dad is dealing with enough without your constant neediness, she'd scold when I asked when he might come home for dinner. He has important deadlines to meet. We need to be strong for him. I watched as Jessica transformed into someone I barely recognized. She took over cooking meals, though they were nothing like Mom's, and started making household decisions. Dad seemed grateful for her stepping up, and their relationship strengthened, while mine with him began to deteriorate. The business success that followed Mom's death only made things worse. Dad got promoted to senior software architect, which meant more money, but even less time at home. Jessica manipulated this situation like a chess master, using guilt trips and emotional tactics to maintain her position as his favorite. Sarah just spent $80 on art supplies, she'd tell him, conveniently leaving out that it was for a school project he'd forgotten about. Or, Sarah said she doesn't really need you to come to her photography exhibition because she knows how busy you are. When I'd actually been counting the days, hoping he would attend. By the time I reached high school, Jessica had crafted an entirely false narrative about me to our father. According to her, I was rebellious, ungrateful, and only interested in hanging out with friends. The truth was that I had retreated into my studies and art as a way to cope with losing both my mother and, increasingly, my father. The ultimate betrayal came during my junior year when I was selected to have my photographs displayed in a regional high school art showcase. The exhibition opening was scheduled on a Thursday evening, and I had reminded Dad for weeks, showing him the invitation and marking it on the kitchen calendar. The night before, I overheard Jessica on the phone with him. "Sarah told me she doesn't want to make a big deal about tomorrow," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Actually, she mentioned that having you there might make her nervous. Maybe you should just send a card or something." The next day, I stood alone at the exhibition opening, watching other students with their proud parents as my black and white landscape photos were praised by teachers and local artists. Dad sent a text message saying, "Congratulations, honey. Sorry I couldn't make it. Had an important client presentation." I later found out from his assistant that Jessica had called his office that morning, claiming I had asked to reschedule the exhibition, causing him to book a work meeting instead. When I confronted her, Jessica just shrugged. "You always want all the attention. It's honestly pathetic." By 18, I couldn't wait to leave for college. I applied to schools on the other side of the country, desperate for distance from the toxic environment at home. UC San Diego offered me a partial scholarship for marketing, and I threw myself into campus life, limiting visits home to major holidays where I'd endure Jessica's subtle jabs and Dad's distant politeness. It was during my sophomore year that I met David. We shared a business communications class, and he asked to borrow my notes after missing a lecture due to the flu. Tall with blonde hair, blue eyes, and the kind of genuine smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. David was studying computer science and had a logical mind that perfectly balanced my more creative thinking. Our coffee meetup to exchange notes turned into a 3-hour conversation about everything from favorite movies to family dynamics. Within a month, we were inseparable. David came from the kind of warm, boisterous family I'd only seen in movies. His father, Bob, was a construction contractor with calloused hands and a hearty laugh. His mother, Susan, worked as a nurse and had this incredible talent for making everyone feel special and valued. His younger brother, Tommy, was a high school sophomore who treated me like the big sister he'd never had. They welcomed me into their San Francisco home as if I'd always belonged there. Sunday dinners at the Miller house became my sanctuary, loud, chaotic affairs where everyone talked over each other, shared stories, and actually listened when others spoke. "You're part of our family now, honey," Susan told me after about 6 months of dating David. "We love you just as you are." Through 4 years of college and into our early careers, David remained my anchor. He understood my family issues without judgment, holding me when holiday visits left me in tears and celebrating my achievements when my own father failed to acknowledge them. After graduation, I landed a position at a marketing firm in Los Angeles, while David joined a tech startup in the same city. We rented a small apartment in Santa Monica, building our careers and our relationship far from the shadow of my family drama. I maintained obligatory monthly phone calls with my father, which were typically brief and superficial. "How's work?" "Good." "How's David?" "Good. Good to hear." "Well, I should let you go." Jessica, now working at a local bank in Denver and still living at home, continued to position herself as the dutiful daughter, making sure to remind me during our rare conversations that she was the one taking care of Dad. By 25, I had been promoted to marketing manager and was leading campaigns for major clients. David had similarly advanced at his startup, and our life together felt fulfilling in ways I'd never imagined possible. The wounds from my family remained, but I'd built a new life where I was valued and loved for who I actually was. David proposed on our 4th anniversary. He'd planned an entire day around our favorite memories: breakfast at the beachside cafe where we used to study, a visit to the art museum where we'd had our second date, and dinner at the Italian restaurant where we'd celebrated my college graduation. When dessert arrived at the restaurant, I found a small velvet box next to my tiramisu. "Sarah," he said, taking my hands across the table, "you've made these past 4 years the best of my life. Your creativity, your strength, your kindness. They amaze me every single day. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" The ring was perfect, a classic princess-cut diamond that sparkled in the restaurant's candlelight. David later told me he'd chosen it because it was elegant and timeless, just like I was to him. In the joy of that moment, I pushed aside any anxiety about sharing our news with my family. For one perfect evening, I wanted to simply be happy without the shadow of past disappointments. The next morning, I called my father. After exchanging our usual pleasantries, I took a deep breath and shared our news. Dad, I wanted you to know that David proposed last night, and I said yes. The pause that followed lasted just a beat too long. Oh, well, congratulations, he finally said, his tone more appropriate for hearing about a minor work achievement than his daughter's engagement. He seems like a good guy. Have you set a date? No excitement, no questions about the proposal, no offer to celebrate, just practical inquiries delivered in the same tone he might use to discuss quarterly reports. Not yet, I replied, trying to mask my disappointment. We're thinking maybe next fall, September, when the weather's nice. Let me know when you decide. I should check my calendar. After hanging up, I sat on our couch fighting back tears. David found me there and immediately understood what had happened. He'll come around, he assured me, though I could tell he didn't fully believe it himself. Jessica's reaction was even more telling. When I texted her the news with a photo of the ring, her response was so excessively congratulatory, it was obviously insincere. OMG, congrats, little sis. So happy for you. That ring is so pretty. The excessive exclamation points couldn't mask what I knew was seething jealousy. Jessica, at 30, had gone through a series of short-lived relationships, but never seemed to find someone willing to commit long-term. Despite the lukewarm response from my family, David and I proceeded with planning. After considering various options, we settled on September 22nd as our wedding date, giving us 8 months to arrange everything. The date worked well for David's family, my closest friends, and importantly, my father confirmed he was available. We sent save-the-date cards 7 months in advance, wanting to give everyone plenty of notice. My father received his and, in our next phone call, actually sounded somewhat enthusiastic. I've put it in my calendar, he said. Jessica mentioned it to me as well. Actually, Dad, I ventured carefully. I was hoping you would walk me down the aisle. Another pause, but this time when he spoke, I detected genuine emotion in his voice. I would be honored, Sarah. That single moment of connection gave me hope that perhaps my wedding might help heal some of the distance between us. The following months were filled with venue tours, catering tastings, and dress fittings. We found a beautiful historic hotel in Denver with a garden terrace for the ceremony and an elegant ballroom for the reception. David's mother, Susan, joined me for many of these appointments, offering suggestions without being overbearing and expressing genuine excitement about every detail. You're going to be the most beautiful bride, she told me during my first dress fitting, tears in her eyes as I emerged from the dressing room in a fitted lace gown with delicate beading. In that moment, I felt the absence of my own mother more acutely than I had in years. Susan seemed to sense this, gently squeezing my hand. Your mom would be so proud of the woman you've become. As we continued planning, I also grew closer to David's uncle Tom, his mother's brother. Tom was in his late 50s, a retired high school English teacher with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd never married or had children of his own, but he doted on David and Tommy as if they were his sons. At family gatherings, Uncle Tom always made a point to engage me in conversation about books, photography, or my work in marketing. Unlike many older relatives who asked polite but disinterested questions, Tom listened attentively and offered thoughtful responses. You have a remarkable eye for what moves people, he said, after I showed him a campaign I'd developed for a nonprofit client. That's a rare gift. During one Sunday dinner at David's parents' home, Tom mentioned that he'd already reserved a hotel room for the wedding weekend. I wouldn't miss it for the world, he said, with a warm smile. I've already bought a new tuxedo for the occasion. His genuine enthusiasm was a stark contrast to my own family's responses. My father would confirm his attendance during our calls, but never initiated questions about wedding plans. Jessica had declined to be a bridesmaid, citing work commitments, though she did say she would attend. About 4 months before the wedding, I began to notice some troubling signs. Jessica started posting more frequently on social media about something new in her life, a golden retriever named Max that she'd adopted from a local rescue. At first, the post seemed normal enough. Pictures of Max playing in their backyard, shots of him sleeping on her bed, videos of him learning basic commands. But as weeks went by, the posts became more frequent and more intense. My baby boy, she'd caption photos. Max is my whole world. This precious angel completed our family. Even Dad started posting pictures of Max on his own Facebook page. which was unusual since he rarely used social media. The dog was undeniably cute, fluffy golden fur, big brown eyes, and that typical golden retriever smile. But something about Jessica's level of attachment seemed off. Planning something extra special for my precious boy, she posted one day, along with a photo of Max wearing a little birthday hat. I felt a knot of anxiety form in my stomach, but I tried to push it aside, focusing instead on finalizing our wedding plans. The bombshell dropped exactly 6 weeks before our wedding day. Jessica called me on a Sunday afternoon, her voice dripping with that particular brand of false sweetness I'd learned to recognize over the years. "Sarah, I have such exciting news to share with you." "What's up?" I asked, immediately on guard. "I'm throwing Max his very first birthday party. September 22nd. Can you believe he's going to be 1 whole year old?" My blood ran cold. "Jessica, that's my wedding day. You received the save the date card 7 months ago." "Oh my gosh, did I?" she said with feigned surprise. It must have completely slipped my mind when I was making plans. Anyway, it's just a coincidence that the dates overlap. My event is earlier in the day, starting at 2 p.m. at the doggy daycare center. It should be winding down around the time your ceremony starts at 5, so it works out perfectly. "Perfectly?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You're scheduling a dog's birthday party on my wedding day, knowing Dad will have to choose?" "Dad can attend both events," she replied smoothly. "He's so excited about Max's big day. I've hired a professional pet photographer, ordered a custom cake from the dog bakery, invited all of Max's doggy friends from the park. It's going to be absolutely magical." The doggy daycare center was in a suburb about 3 hours from our wedding venue, making it physically impossible for anyone attending her party to arrive in time for our ceremony, especially the father of the bride, who would need to be there early for photos. "Jessica, you know exactly what you're doing," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I have no idea what you mean," she replied, with mock innocence. "I'm just celebrating my fur baby's special day. You're being really dramatic about this, Sarah. It's just a dog party. It'll be quick." After hanging up, I immediately called my father, hoping against hope that he would see through Jessica's manipulation. "Dad, did you know Jessica scheduled Max's birthday party on my wedding day?" "Yes, she mentioned it," he replied casually. "It's unfortunate timing, but you know how much that dog means to her. It's a big milestone, his first birthday." "But Dad, how will you attend both? You're supposed to walk me down the aisle." "I'll make it work, Sarah. I'll go to the first part of Max's party and then drive over for your ceremony. There's no need to make this a bigger issue than it is." But as the weeks passed, I could sense my father wavering. During our calls, he began mentioning the traffic between venues, asking if we could push the ceremony back an hour, wondering if I really needed him there for the pre-wedding photos. "Maybe David's father could walk you down the aisle," he suggested, during one particularly painful conversation. "Or maybe that uncle of his. I'm sure someone else could do it if I'm running late." Despite the growing tension, our wedding plans continued. Final dress fittings, meetings with the photographer, confirming flower arrangements, and assembling welcome bags for out-of-town guests kept me busy. David and his family remained supportive, though I could tell they were increasingly concerned about my father's commitment. Then, just 2 weeks before the wedding, I received the call that confirmed my worst fears. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was reviewing seating charts when my phone rang with my father's number. "Sarah," he began, his voice uncomfortable. "I need to talk to you about the wedding." The formality in his tone told me everything before he even continued. "I've been thinking about the logistics for September 22nd, and I don't think I can make it to the ceremony on time. Jessica's event is really important to her, and as her father, I need to be there for the whole thing. Max gets anxious around strangers, and Jessica needs my support. The timing just doesn't work out." I gripped the phone tightly, fighting to keep my voice steady. "You're choosing not to walk me down the aisle at my wedding." "It's not about choosing," he said defensively. "It's about practical timing. Jessica's event is earlier, and I can't be in 2 places at once. Maybe you could ask David's father to walk you down the aisle, or that uncle of his. I'm sure someone else can do it." Someone else. As if walking your daughter down the aisle was an interchangeable task that could be delegated to any available male relative. "I see," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll still come to the reception," he added, as if offering a generous compromise. I should be able to make it by 8 or so, depending on traffic. After mumbling goodbye, I dropped the phone and collapsed onto the floor in tears. David found me there 20 minutes later when he returned from work, immediately rushing to my side. "He's not coming," I sobbed into his shoulder. "He's choosing Jessica's dog party over walking me down the aisle." David held me tightly, his own anger evident in his tense shoulders and clenched jaw. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. He doesn't deserve you." That night, as we lay in bed discussing options, David gently raised the possibility of postponing the wedding. "We could move it to another date," he suggested. "Give your dad no excuse not to be there." The thought had crossed my mind too, but something inside me rebelled against it. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not rearranging our wedding because of Jessica's manipulations. That's exactly what she wants." The next day, David's mother called to check on final wedding details and immediately sensed something was wrong. I found myself pouring out the whole story to her over the phone. "Oh, sweetheart," Susan said, her voice filled with motherly concern. "I cannot believe your father would do this to you." "I don't know what to do," I admitted. Part of me wants to call and beg him to reconsider, but I know that's exactly what Jessica expects. She wants me to seem desperate. "Listen to me," Susan said firmly. "This is your day, yours and David's. Don't let anyone diminish it. Your father is making a choice he'll regret for the rest of his life, but that's his burden to bear, not yours." Her words gave me strength, but the question remained: who would walk me down the aisle? The traditional father-daughter moment had been something I'd dreamed about despite our difficult relationship. The thought of walking alone felt like a public acknowledgement of my father's rejection. Later that week, I received an unexpected call from Uncle Tom. "David told me what happened," he said gently. "I hope you don't mind him sharing." "Of course not," I replied, touched that he would call to check on me. "I know this is a difficult time," Tom continued. "Family disappointments cut the deepest." Something in his tone suggested personal experience with such pain. "It sounds like you understand." A pause. "More than you might guess. My own father refused to attend my college graduation because he disapproved of my choice to study literature instead of business. Some wounds never fully heal, but we learn to build beautiful lives despite them." His wisdom and kindness brought fresh tears to my eyes. "Thank you for understanding, Tom. Anytime, dear. And remember, family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up for you when it matters." 1 week before the wedding, I hit rock bottom emotionally. Despite the excited emails from friends arriving in town and final confirmations from vendors, I found myself sitting on our bathroom floor at midnight, overwhelmed by grief. The wedding I'd planned was coming together perfectly, except for the gaping hole left by my father's absence. The next morning, David suggested I meet his mother for lunch. "Mom really wants to see you," he said. "Just the two of you." Susan was waiting at a quiet corner table in a small cafe when I arrived. She stood to hug me tightly before we sat down. "David is worried about you," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "We all are." "I'm trying to be strong," I replied, stirring my tea without drinking it. "I keep telling myself it doesn't matter, that I'm better off without Dad there if this is how he treats me. But then I think about walking into that ceremony alone, and I just feel abandoned." "That's exactly what you should feel," Susan finished softly. "It's okay to feel that way, Sarah. What your father is doing is wrong, and you have every right to be hurt." We ordered lunch, though I had little appetite. As we picked at our salads, Susan seemed to be gathering her thoughts. "There's something I think you should know," she finally said. "Something about Tom that might help you understand why he called you." I looked up, curious. "What about him?" "Tom never told you this, but his relationship with his own father was complicated," Susan explained. "When Tom chose to become a teacher instead of taking over the family construction business, his father basically disowned him. Stopped speaking to him for almost 10 years. I nodded, remembering Tom's comment about his father missing his graduation. "What you might not know," Susan continued, "is that when I married Bob, my own father refused to attend the wedding. He disapproved of Bob because he thought construction work was beneath our family, said it would embarrass him in front of his friends." "That's terrible," I murmured. "It was. But you know who offered to walk me down the aisle," she said, a small smile forming. "Tom. He understood what it was like to be rejected by a parent. He told me, 'Susan, you deserve to be given away by someone who celebrates your happiness, not someone who judges it.'" Her story resonated deeply with my situation. I had no idea Tom did that for you. He never had children of his own, Susan continued, but he's been the most wonderful uncle to David and Tommy. He attends every school play, every graduation, every important moment. He shows up, Sarah. That's what real family does. The implication of her story was clear, but she was too tactful to say it directly. Still, the idea began to form in my mind. Do you think, I started hesitantly, would it be inappropriate to ask Tom if he would walk me down the aisle? Susan's eyes filled with tears. Oh, sweetheart, I think it would mean the world to him. But this has to be your decision, not something you feel pressured into. I spent the next day considering the idea, turning it over in my mind. Tom had always shown genuine interest in my life and had been nothing but kind to me since I'd entered David's family. There was something poetic about being walked down the aisle by someone who truly understood parental rejection. That evening, I called Tom and asked if we could meet for coffee the following day. He agreed immediately, and we arranged to meet at a bookstore cafe near his apartment. When I arrived, Tom was already there with a stack of books on the table and 2 coffees waiting. I took the liberty of ordering your usual, he said with a warm smile. Vanilla latte with an extra shot, right? The fact that he remembered such a small detail about my preferences only confirmed what I already knew about his character. After some small talk about the books he'd purchased, I gathered my courage. Tom, there's something I wanted to ask you. He set down his coffee cup, giving me his full attention. Anything, Sarah. I don't know if David told you, but my father has decided not to walk me down the aisle. The words still hurt to say out loud. Tom nodded solemnly. David mentioned there was some conflict. I'm truly sorry you're experiencing this. I took a deep breath. Susan told me how you walked her down the aisle at her wedding to Bob, and how meaningful that was to her. I was wondering, I would be honored if you would consider doing the same for me. Tom's expression shifted from surprise to profound emotion. For a moment, he seemed unable to speak, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Sarah, he finally said, his voice thick. I cannot tell you what this means to me. Are you certain? This should be a special moment with someone you're close to. I am absolutely certain, I replied, feeling more confident by the second. You've shown me more genuine interest and support in the few years I've known you than my father has in the past decade. I would be proud to have you walk me down the aisle. Tom reached across the table and took my hand in his. Then I accept with all my heart. It would be one of the greatest honors of my life. The weight that had been crushing me for weeks suddenly felt lighter. Tom was right. Family was about who showed up, not just shared DNA. The final days before the wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Final vendor confirmations, welcome bags to assemble, out-of-town guests beginning to arrive. Through it all, I felt a new sense of peace about my decision. I made one last attempt to reach out to my father, calling him 3 days before the wedding. Dad, I just wanted to confirm whether you're still planning to come to the reception. Yes, I should be able to make it after Max's party, he replied, sounding distracted. Probably around 8:30 or 9. I swallowed hard. I also wanted you to know that I've asked David's Uncle Tom to walk me down the aisle. A pause. Who? Tom Miller, David's uncle. He's been very supportive throughout our relationship. I see, his tone was unreadable. Well, I suppose someone has to do it if I can't be there on time. His dismissive response only confirmed I had made the right choice. The night before the wedding, we held a small rehearsal dinner at a restaurant near the hotel. Tom attended, looking distinguished in a charcoal suit. During dinner, he stood to offer a toast that brought tears to many eyes. To Sarah and David, he said, raising his glass. True love is not just about finding the right person, but also about creating a family of choice that supports and celebrates you. I've watched your relationship blossom over these years, and the care and respect you show each other gives me hope for the future. I'm deeply honored to play a small role in your special day tomorrow. Later that evening, as guests were leaving, I checked social media one last time and saw posts from Jessica about Max's upcoming celebration. The photos showed simple decorations being set up in what looked like someone's backyard, with maybe a dozen people tagged. It was clearly not the grand doggy daycare event she'd described to my father. Just a regular house party she'd scheduled specifically to conflict with my wedding. The knowledge should have hurt, but instead, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The scales had finally fallen from my eyes about the true nature of my sister's feelings toward me. Her jealousy ran so deep that she would sabotage one of the most important days of my life, simply out of spite. I closed the app and turned off my phone, determined not to let her negativity touch me on the eve of my wedding. Tomorrow would be about love, not family drama. I awoke on my wedding day to sunshine streaming through the hotel room curtains. My 3 bridesmaids, college friends who had become my chosen sisters, arrived early with coffee and pastries, their excitement infectious. The hairstylist and makeup artist arrived at 9, and the getting ready process began in earnest. As my friend Emma was having her hair styled, my phone chimed with a text message from my father. "Good luck today. Max's party starts at 2. If it wraps up early, I might be able to make it to the reception by 8. Save me some cake. Not a word of regret about missing the ceremony, not even congratulations or I love you. Just a reminder that Max's party was his priority." I handed the phone to my bridesmaid Rachel, unable to respond. She read it and shook her head in disbelief. "He's unbelievable," she muttered, giving me a supportive hug. "Try not to let it ruin your perfect day." Around noon, there was a knock at the hotel suite door. When Emma opened it, Tom was standing there, immaculately dressed in his black tuxedo, holding a small gift box. "I hope I'm not intruding on the preparations," he said. "I just wanted to drop this off for Sarah before the ceremony." I invited him in, touched by his thoughtfulness. The bridesmaids discreetly moved to the bedroom area of the suite to give us a moment of privacy. "You look absolutely radiant," Tom said, his eyes crinkling with genuine warmth. "David is a very fortunate young man. Thank you for coming by," I replied, "and for everything else." Tom handed me the small box. "I wanted you to have this today. It belonged to my mother, and I've been saving it for a special occasion." Inside was a delicate vintage handkerchief, edged with intricate lace and embroidered with tiny blue flowers. "Something old, something blue," Tom explained. "My mother carried it on her wedding day in 1932. I thought perhaps you might like to have it with you today." Tears welled in my eyes at the sentiment. "It's beautiful, Tom. I would be honored." "There's one more thing," he added, reaching into his pocket. "Susan asked me to give you this. It was meant to be a surprise." He handed me a small velvet pouch. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny camera crossed with a paintbrush. "She remembered you telling her how you loved both photography and painting as a child," Tom explained. "She wanted you to have a reminder of your creative spirit on your wedding day." The thoughtfulness of the gesture overwhelmed me. These people, who had no obligation to me by blood, had shown more care for my happiness than my own family. "Please thank her for me," I managed, fastening the bracelet around my wrist. "I'll thank her properly later, but this means so much." Tom nodded, understanding the emotion behind my words. "I should let you continue getting ready. I'll see you before the ceremony." As the afternoon progressed, I tried to focus on the joy of the day rather than the absence of my father. My bridesmaids helped me into my dress, the fitted lace gown with delicate beading and a sweetheart neckline that made me feel like a princess. With my hair swept up in an elegant updo adorned with small white flowers, my mother's pearl earrings, Susan's bracelet, and Tom's handkerchief tucked into my bouquet, I felt ready to walk down the aisle. At 3:30, the photographer knocked on the door for pre-ceremony photos. As we were finishing up, there was another knock. It was Susan, radiant in her navy mother-of-the-bride dress. "Oh, Sarah," she breathed, her eyes filling with tears. "You are absolutely stunning." She hugged me carefully, mindful of my dress. "Tom is waiting in the lobby whenever you're ready." At 10 minutes before 5, I made my way to the garden terrace where the ceremony would take place. Through the glass doors, I could see the 90 guests seated in white chairs, the floral arch where David waited with the officiant, and the string quartet playing softly. Tom was waiting in the small anteroom, looking slightly nervous but composed. When he saw me, his expression was one of pure pride. "Ready?" he asked gently. I nodded, suddenly too emotional to speak. Tom offered his arm, and as the first notes of Canon in D began to play, the doors opened before us. Walking down the aisle with Tom beside me, I felt a curious blend of emotions. There was still a pang of sadness that my father had chosen to miss this moment, but it was overshadowed by gratitude for the man who had stepped in with such grace and kindness. David's face as he watched me approach was worth every moment of planning, every family drama, every tear shed. His eyes shone with love and wonder, and in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that we were creating our own family, one built on mutual respect and genuine care. The ceremony was everything I had hoped for. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, promising to support each other's dreams, to communicate honestly, and to choose each other every day. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the applause from our guests seemed to wrap around us like an embrace. The cocktail hour and dinner that followed were filled with laughter, toasts, and dancing. David's father gave a heartfelt speech welcoming me to the family, and Tom's toast brought happy tears to many eyes as he spoke about the privilege of watching young love blossom and grow. Sometimes, Tom said, raising his glass, the most beautiful families are the ones we choose, not the ones we're born into. Sarah, you chose to let us love you, and we are all richer for it. By 8:30, it was clear my father would not make even the reception. I tried not to let it dampen my spirits as David and I shared our first dance to our favorite song, At Last, by Etta James. As the evening progressed, I noticed David's cousin Jake arrive, looking slightly frazzled. Jake lived in Denver, and while we weren't extremely close, he had always been kind to me. He was also one of the few people who knew both Jessica and our family dynamics. After greeting him with a hug, I commented on his late arrival. "I'm so sorry," he said, looking genuinely apologetic. "I actually stopped by that dog party thing first, thinking I could make both events. But Sarah, there's something you need to know." He guided me to a quiet corner of the reception hall, his expression serious. "That party Jessica had today, it wasn't what she told everyone it was. It wasn't some big event at a doggy daycare center." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" I drove past the location she posted on social media. There was no party there, so I followed the actual location tags from her Instagram posts. Jake pulled out his phone, showing me screenshots. It was just Jessica, your dad, and Max in your backyard. Maybe 3 of Jessica's friends. They were there for about 30 minutes, took some photos with a store-bought cake, and then I saw them at Applebee's afterward, eating lunch. The implications were staggering. So she lied about the whole thing? Jake nodded grimly. "That's not all. I overheard her talking to your dad. She's been telling him for months that you didn't really want him at the wedding, that you only asked him to walk you down the aisle out of obligation." "What? That's completely false." "I know, and there's more." Thomas pulled up a text conversation on his phone. "She's been planning this for months. Look at this message she sent me back in July." The text read, "Can't wait for Sarah's wedding drama. Dad's going to choose me and Max over her precious day. She always thinks she's so special, but I'm Dad's favorite now." The revelation was both shocking and strangely validating. All these years, I had wondered if I was being paranoid about Jessica's manipulations. But here was proof that she had been actively sabotaging my relationship with our father. "Does Dad know any of this?" I asked. Jake shook his head. "I don't think so. I tried to tell him today, but Jessica kept interrupting and eventually pulled him away. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I should have realized what was happening sooner." I hugged my cousin, grateful for his honesty. "Thank you for telling me, Jake. At least now I know the truth." As the reception continued, I tried to process this new information. Part of me wanted to call my father immediately and expose Jessica's lies, but another part recognized that this was my wedding day, and I deserved to enjoy it without family drama. I rejoined David on the dance floor, pushing thoughts of my sister and father aside for the moment. This day was about our love and our future, not the painful past. The reception was winding down around 10:30, with only about 40 guests remaining, when I noticed a commotion near the entrance. My heart skipped a beat when I recognized my father's tall figure entering the ballroom, looking uncomfortable in a suit that seemed hastily put on. David noticed him at the same time and squeezed my hand. "Do you want me to handle this?" I shook my head. "No, I need to deal with this myself." My father approached awkwardly, holding a small gift bag. "Congratulations," he said stiffly, leaning in for an equally stiff hug. "Sorry I'm late. Max's thing ran longer than expected." The casual way he referenced missing my entire wedding ceremony made my blood boil, but I maintained my composure. I'm glad you could make it for the last hour of the reception. If he detected the sarcasm in my voice, he didn't acknowledge it. Instead, he glanced around the room, taking in the elegant decorations, the remnants of the wedding cake, the small group of guests still dancing. It looks like it was a nice wedding, he commented, as if discussing a movie he'd missed. It was beautiful, I replied. Perfect, actually. An uncomfortable silence fell between us before he thrust the gift bag toward me. This is from Jessica and me. I accepted the bag without opening it. Thank you. Would you like a drink? The bar is still open. He nodded, and we walked to the bar together. As the bartender prepared his scotch, my father finally asked the question I'd been expecting. So who ended up walking you down the aisle? Tom Miller, I replied. David's uncle. My father frowned slightly. The older gentleman in the navy tuxedo, the one who gave that toast earlier. I nodded, scanning the room and spotting Tom chatting with Susan and Bob at a nearby table. Yes, that's him. You had a stranger walk you down the aisle? His tone was incredulous, as if I'd made an absurd choice. He's not a stranger to me, I said firmly. He's been part of David's family for years, and he's shown more interest in my life and happiness than you have in a very long time. My father's face flushed with anger. That's not fair, Sarah. I've always supported you. Have you? I challenged. Years of hurt finally bubbling to the surface. You missed my art showcase in high school because Jessica told you I didn't want you there. You forgot about my college graduation dinner until David's parents reminded you. And now you've skipped my wedding ceremony for Jessica's fake dog party. Fake party? What are you talking about? At that moment, Jake approached us. Uncle Michael, I'm glad you made it, even if it's just for the end of the reception. My father nodded curtly. Jake, what's this Sarah is saying about Jessica's party being fake? Jake looked between us, clearly realizing he'd walked into a tense conversation. I was just telling Sarah earlier. The party today wasn't what Jessica described. It wasn't at a doggy daycare center with lots of people. It was just you, Jessica, and Max in the backyard, with maybe 3 friends. I saw you guys at Applebee's afterward. That can't be right, my father insisted. Jessica said it was a big celebration. The doggy daycare center was sponsoring it. There were supposed to be other dog owners, professional photos. I'm sorry, Uncle Michael, Jake replied calmly, but that's not what happened. I have the screenshots from her social media if you want to see them. Before my father could respond, Tom approached our small group. Sarah, David is looking for you. I believe it's almost time for the sparkler send-off. My father stared at Tom with barely concealed hostility. You must be the uncle who walked my daughter down the aisle. Tom extended his hand politely. Tom Miller. You must be Michael. It's good to finally meet you. My father ignored the outstretched hand. I don't understand why my daughter needed to have a stranger take my place at her wedding. Dad, stop it, I hissed, mortified by his behavior. Tom remained composed, his voice calm but firm. I can understand your confusion, Michael. It was an honor to support Sarah on her special day, especially knowing how important the ceremony was to her. Important to her, my father scoffed. If it was so important, she could have scheduled it on a day that didn't conflict with her sister's event. My wedding was scheduled 9 months ago, I interjected. Jessica deliberately planned her party for the same day, and Jake has proof of it. Jake reluctantly showed my father the text messages from Jessica where she explicitly stated her intention to create a conflict. My father read them, his face growing increasingly pale. This can't be right, he muttered. Jessica wouldn't do this. She's been taking care of me since your mother died. She's been manipulating you since Mom died, I said, my voice breaking. She's been deliberately driving a wedge between us for years. She lied to you about me not wanting you at my art showcase, about me not caring if you came to my graduation dinner, and now about me not really wanting you to walk me down the aisle. She told me you said having me walk you down the aisle would be embarrassing because we're not close anymore, my father said quietly. She said you only asked out of obligation. That's absolutely not true, I insisted. I wanted you there. I've always wanted you in my life. The realization seemed to hit my father all at once, the years of manipulation suddenly becoming clear to him. His expression shifted from confusion to anger to something that looked almost like shame. I need to speak with Jessica, he said sharply, pulling out his phone. Right now. Not here, I pleaded. This is my wedding reception. But he was already dialing, stepping away from our group. I could hear him speaking in terse, angry tones just outside the ballroom doors. Tom placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "I'm so sorry about this, Sarah. Should I get David?" I nodded gratefully, feeling overwhelmed by the confrontation. Tom disappeared into the crowd, returning moments later with my new husband. David took in the situation quickly, putting a protective arm around me. "What happened?" Before I could explain, my father returned, his face flushed with anger. "Jessica hung up on me. I'm driving to her apartment right now to get the truth." "Dad, please," I said. "Can this wait until tomorrow? This is supposed to be a celebration." "I need to know if what you're saying is true," he insisted. "If Jessica has been lying to me all these years." He looked at me, then at Tom, who was standing supportively beside David and me. Something about seeing us together, this family I'd chosen, and who had chosen me, seemed to trigger a fresh wave of anger in him. "So you replaced me with him," he said, gesturing toward Tom. "Some random old man you barely know." Tom stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. Evans, I understand you're upset, but this is neither the time nor place for this conversation. Today is about Sarah and David's marriage, not about past grievances." "Don't tell me what this day is about," my father snapped. "She's my daughter." "Then perhaps you should have acted like her father," Tom replied evenly. "Being a father means showing up, not just when it's convenient, but when it matters most." The simple truth of Tom's words seemed to hit my father like a physical blow. He stared at Tom, then at me, his anger suddenly deflating into something that looked almost like shame. "I need to go," he said abruptly. "I need to talk to Jessica." Without another word, he turned and strode out of the ballroom, leaving an uncomfortable silence in his wake. David pulled me close. "Are you okay?" I nodded, though tears threatened. "I just wish he could have seen the truth sooner." Tom's steady presence beside us was comforting. "Family revelations are never easy, Sarah, but sometimes they're necessary for healing to begin." Susan and Bob joined us, having witnessed the confrontation from a distance. Susan hugged me tightly. "Don't let this overshadow your beautiful day. You and David deserve all the happiness in the world." We rejoined the remaining guests for the sparkler send-off, creating a magical tunnel of light as David and I ran through to our waiting car. Despite the confrontation with my father, I felt a curious sense of peace as we drove away. The truth was finally out in the open, and whatever happened next, I had a new family who truly valued me. David and I spent 2 blissful weeks honeymooning in Italy, exploring ancient ruins and romantic villages, while enjoying the best pasta and wine of our lives. The distance from family drama allowed me to process everything that had happened and gain perspective on the revelations of our wedding day. I had turned off notifications from my father and Jessica, determined to enjoy this special time with my new husband. But when we returned to our apartment in Los Angeles, reality was waiting in my voicemail and email inbox. There were 7 messages from my father, each progressively more apologetic. The final one, left just 2 days before our return, was particularly raw. "Sarah, I don't know if you're listening to these messages, but I need to tell you that you were right about Jessica. After the wedding, I went to her apartment and confronted her with those text messages Jake showed me. At first, she denied everything, but when I pressed her, she finally admitted the truth. She's been manipulating both of us for years, telling me you didn't want me in your life while telling you I was too busy for you. I can't believe I was so blind. I understand if you never want to speak to me again, but I hope someday you'll give me a chance to make this right. I'm so sorry I missed your wedding. It was unforgivable." There were no messages from Jessica, but a terse email stating she was taking some time away from family drama and would be traveling for work indefinitely. I sat on our couch, staring at my phone long after the messages ended. David sat beside me, holding my hand in silent support. "What are you thinking?" he finally asked. "I don't know," I admitted. Part of me feels vindicated that Dad finally sees the truth about Jessica, but another part is just sad for all the years we lost. "Do you want to call him back?" I considered the question carefully. "Not yet. I need some time to figure out what I want this relationship to look like going forward, if I even want one at all." The next few weeks were busy with thank you notes, returning to work, and settling into married life. I maintained contact with David's family, especially Tom, who called every Sunday evening to check in. "How are you doing, Sarah?" he would ask, his voice warm with genuine concern. Our conversations would range from books we were reading to work projects to deeper discussions about family and forgiveness. Tom never pressured me about reconnecting with my father, but his own experiences offered valuable perspective. Forgiveness isn't about excusing the behavior, he told me during one call. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment. Whatever you decide about your relationship with your father, make sure it brings you peace. A month after our return from Italy, I finally called my father. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between Los Angeles and Denver, when I was visiting for work. He was already there when I arrived, looking older and more tired than I remembered from the wedding. He stood awkwardly as I approached the table. "Sarah, thank you for coming," he said, his voice thick with emotion. We sat down, ordering coffee to give ourselves something to do with our hands. "I don't even know where to begin," he said after our drinks arrived. "I failed you so completely." "Yes, you did," I agreed, not willing to sugarcoat the truth. "But I want to understand how it happened. How did you not see what Jessica was doing all these years?" He sighed heavily. "After your mother died, I was lost. Jessica stepped up to take care of things at home, and I was grateful. It was easier to believe her version of events than to face my own grief and inadequacy as a single parent. She became my filter for everything, my connection to you, my understanding of what you wanted or needed. By the time you left for college, I genuinely believed her narrative that you were pulling away from the family. I never wanted to pull away from you," I said, feeling tears prick my eyes. I just couldn't handle Jessica's constant manipulation. It was easier to distance myself than to fight for a relationship that felt hopeless. "I understand that now," he replied. After the wedding, when I confronted her, she finally admitted everything. She told me she'd been jealous of our relationship since you were a child. She felt I always favored you, and after your mother died, she saw an opportunity to have me all to herself. "Have you spoken to her since?" He shook his head. "She left for Florida the day after I confronted her. She's staying with a friend in Miami and refuses to discuss what happened. I don't know when or if she'll come back." We talked for nearly 3 hours, going through painful memories and misunderstandings. There were tears on both sides, recriminations, and eventually the beginnings of understanding. "I want to try to rebuild our relationship," my father said as we prepared to leave. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but if you're willing, I'd like to get to know the amazing woman you've become." "I need to think about it," I replied honestly. "This isn't something we can fix in one conversation." He nodded, accepting my boundary. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." Over the following months, we began a careful reconciliation. Weekly phone calls became regular visits when I was in town for work. I introduced him properly to David's family, including Tom, who displayed remarkable grace in welcoming my father despite their awkward first meeting. 3 months after our first reunion, my father suggested a family dinner at his home, including David's parents and Tom. It was a tentative step toward blending our families, and while there were awkward moments, there was also genuine effort on all sides. After dinner, I found my father and Tom in the living room, deep in conversation. "I want to thank you for being there for Sarah when I wasn't," my father was saying. "Walking her down the aisle should have been my privilege, but you did it with honor." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "She's a remarkable young woman, Michael. You should be very proud of who she's become, largely through her own strength and determination." "I am," my father agreed. "I just wish I'd been more present to see it happening." Their conversation gave me hope that perhaps the wounds of the past could truly heal with time and effort. Jessica remained distant, occasionally sending impersonal text messages or holiday cards, but avoiding any real conversation about what had happened. I came to accept that some relationships might never be repaired, and that was okay. Not every family story has a complete happy ending, and that doesn't make the healing that does happen any less meaningful. 6 months after the wedding, we hosted our first Thanksgiving as a married couple. Our dining table was filled with David's family, my father, Jake, and a few close friends. Jessica was invited but declined without explanation. As we went around the table, sharing what we were thankful for, my father's voice broke with emotion. "I'm thankful for second chances," he said simply, "and for a daughter whose capacity for forgiveness humbles me every day." When it was Tom's turn, he smiled warmly around the table. "I'm thankful for the reminder that family is created through love and choice, not just biology. And I'm especially thankful to have gained another niece in Sarah, whose courage and grace inspire me. On our 1-year anniversary, David and I held a small dinner party to celebrate. Tom surprised us with a toast that brought tears to my eyes. 1 year ago, I had the privilege of walking this beautiful young woman down the aisle to marry the man she loves. What began as a response to absence has become one of the greatest gifts of my life. The opportunity to be part of Sarah and David's journey. May your marriage continue to grow in strength and joy. And may you always remember that true family consists of those who choose to love you, even when it's difficult. As I reflect on the journey that brought us here, I realize that sometimes life's greatest wounds can lead to unexpected healing. My father's absence on my wedding day led to Tom's presence, which in turn created a bridge for my father's return to my life. The family I have now includes both those I was born to and those I have chosen. All imperfect, all valuable in their own ways. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing harmful behavior. It means freeing yourself from the burden of resentment and creating boundaries that protect your heart while allowing for growth and change. The person who walks you down the aisle should indeed be someone who has walked beside you through life's challenges, supporting and loving you unconditionally. Sometimes that person shares your DNA, and sometimes they come into your life through other paths. What matters most is not who stands beside you on one important day, but who shows up for all the ordinary days that follow. I'm fortunate to have found my tribe, the people who choose me every day, just as I choose them. My wedding day didn't go according to the original plan, but it gave me something more valuable than I could have imagined. The knowledge that family isn't just about blood relations. It's about the people who show up when it matters, who celebrate your happiness without reservation, and who love you not because they have to, but because they choose to. Have you ever had someone unexpected step up for you when family let you down? Or have you been the person who stepped in when someone needed it most? Share your stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you found or created your own chosen family. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more tales of family, forgiveness, and finding your own path. And remember, sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we create through love and choice, not just the ones we're born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find your own tribe of people who choose you every single day. Because at the end of the day, that's what real family looks like. Not perfect people, but people who show up, especially when it's hard. And to anyone out there dealing with family manipulation or feeling like you're not enough, you are worthy of love, support, and celebration. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Sometimes walking away from toxicity is the healthiest thing you can do, and sometimes the family that finds you is better than the one you started with. Keep choosing love, keep choosing authenticity, and keep choosing the people who choose you back. That's where the real magic happens.